Welcome to Reformation Today and Tomorrow, a podcast of the Reformed Baptist Church of Louisville. My name is Jim Savastio. I'm one of the pastors of this church, and I'm joined with one of my fellow elders of 20 plus years together, 27 years, I think, of pastoring together. Our congregation, Pastor John Grevious. If you have not yet looked at the two previous podcasts, we had Pastor John joined. I have to say it here by the Queen of the Reformed Baptist Church, by the First Lady, Vanessa, who's over here. I had told her that I kept wanting to refer to her that way, but I had to try to be good. But you would have heard a bit of their testimony, a bit of their love story, a bit of how God worked in their hearts and grew them in grace and in knowledge, and how they first came to the church. John, in 1998, you became a pastor of this congregation, where its people evaluated you, prayed about it, and I believe it was unanimously saw you set forward along with another man named Bob Brown, and the three of us pastored the church together. John, at this time you were still working
Yes.
full time. Do you remember then what kind of your duties or responsibilities were, and what that meant for you? What did ordination mean for you, and what changes did that bring to your life?
Well, it sobered me up because when I was assistant pastor, things are totally different.
Okay.
You actually start shepherding,
Mm,
which is a difference.
yeah.
And when that happened, I felt the weight of a lot of heavy responsibility on the souls and lives of the sheep.
Sure.
And, my responsibilities changed here. Of course, we led in the worship and do oversights and get in councils and a lot of fun meetings, which you took the brunt of, but stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you see a different side of church life.
Yes.
You see, as a pastor, I think you get to see some of the best of church life.
Yes.
You get to see things that other people don't get to see sometimes. You get to hear testimonies. People, you get to see the Lord working, and people maybe reconciling and healing, and marriages strengthened, and or maybe sometimes somebody converted, kind of behind the scenes, and not everybody gets to see that. But we also get to see some of the more heartbreaking parts, and people struggling in sin, and sometimes obviously departures, and all of the rest. John, you were doing this while also working, what, 50 hours a week?
Basically 40, 40, sometimes 50.
And also living 37 miles away.
37.
I know we had a lot of talks through the years, because now that you're, 74 now?
Oh, yeah.
You're going to be 74 this year.
Be 74 this year. Soon.
All right. You wouldn't know that. If you look at the two of us, you could say, I'm the older of the two of us here. But anyway, you doing all of that, you were, that had to be an extra burden. You're working full time.
Yeah.
You're not living in Louisville, but you're driving to Louisville on the Lord's Day. You're even showing hospitality to people. So sometimes, back then, our services were a little bit different as far as time.
Yeah.
But sometimes you would take folks home to Frankfurt and then be back here for the 6 o'clock service. So a lot of weight, a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
And do you remember, John, at that time, as we broke up, the congregation was smaller, but how many, what we would call oversight visits, that is pastoral visits, you would have a year? Do you remember what you were given?
Back then, I would have about no more than 12.
Okay.
No more than 12.
Okay. All right. Well, good. I'm glad to know I wasn't too much of a...
No, that was too hard. No, it wasn't. Now I got 100. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. I didn't know.
No, you got.
I was.
You still took a lot of them, though.
I did back then.
You did took a lot of
them. And anyway, yeah. So that was. You felt that burden. You felt that weight and responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You were preaching also somewhat regularly, at least once a month or so.
Yeah.
and leading services,
Yes.
teaching, preaching, doing counseling, doing pastoral oversight while doing all of these other matters. As you look back on that transition period and that entering into, and you mentioned something of the weight and the responsibility, are there particular joys or particular sorrows or hardships that stand out to you? Things that made you say, "I love doing this," and other things that maybe made you think, "What in the world did I get myself into?"
Uh, that would only come occasionally, about what I get into, give
Okay,
myself
so
that.
for the most part,
Yeah, for it was joyful. Uh, the thing that was good was working with good pastors
no.
because we had each
Well,
other's
did it?
back.
Right.
You understand
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Right.
And you watched out for us, and like if something wasn't gonna get done, I tell Vanessa, I said, well, Jim will do it, and I don't mean it not in a bad way, but
Wow.
I knew you would, you know, and just the joy of knowing that you were helping somebody on the way to heaven,
Mm.
and helping shepherd us. To me, it's an absolute privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we use the phrase every now and then. I got it from Al Martin. Was
Yeah.
the job of a pastor is to get his people to heaven in the best shape possible.
Yeah.
And so through the years, we've walked with folks that have departed from this, and just recently did this. I mean, just a
Yes.
few weeks ago,
Yes.
said goodbye to one of our members as they really, in that ultimate sense, transition to the chief shepherd,
Yes.
and have that sense that you've done your job.
Mhm.
Um, John, I simply want to say
Yeah.
you were kind in what you just said, but for me, particularly having gone 4 years, that had that 4 years where I was the only pastor, and I know there may be somebody listening who's done that for 20 or 30 or 40 years, and you have my admiration and my pity in some ways that you've had to go through that. I'm thankful that in the 30 coming on 35 years that I've been here, that for 31 of those 35 years I've had fellow pastors, and for longer than with anybody else, I've done it with you.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to butter you up,
No,
but
I
to
know. I
express
know.
my gratitude
Oh, you've
and
been something. No, I'm
thankfulness
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
through the years.
No, you've been the kindest
No,
person to me and Vanessa ever.
well, to have
You and
somebody.
Becky.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thank you. I know we started that relationship very early
Yeah.
on. Well, I think Vanessa said maybe the second week you were there, we had you over to the house.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that relationship began. And as I had said previously, I had a sense very early on in meeting you that the Lord was going to bring you here, knit you here, and I felt very much in my spirit. I'm not trying to say I had any kind of a vision, but I just had a strong sense that the Lord would give you to us as a gift and be a gift to the church, but also a gift to me in serving. Um, when was it that you retired?
2010.
2010. All right, so 15 years ago.
Mhm.
And that's when I really began to lay the work on you.
Yes.
So,
It's not too.
uh,
It's not too bad.
how did that? So, what does life look like pre-retirement versus post-retirement in regard? Now, I know there are things you enjoy doing. We've not gotten into that. John's a famous fisherman,
Yeah.
and he supplies our church picnic every year, our Memorial Day picnic with crappie and other kinds of fish that make our church picnic stand out above other church picnics. Simply humbly stating here, but I don't have anything to do with it. You do. So besides getting to fish a little bit more, I guess, or enjoy some of the benefits of retirement, can you share pastorally what that transition was like to go from having to do this with all the other pressures of life, and being a husband, and I think your kids were out of the home basically by that time,
Yeah.
but you had grandchildren and other things that you were working with, and trying to keep more balls in the air when you were able to retire. What's that been like for you?
Um, it's given me more time to do pastoral things,
Mm-hmm.
and plus other things, not just
Yeah.
pastoral
Yeah.
things. And the weight and the pressure of work,
Yeah.
like hearing cursing all day and
Okay. You
all
have to
the
be
kind
out
of
of the
things
world
like
and be
that,
able to.
yeah, it makes a big difference. And so now, if we have an emergency here, you can call me. I can come.
Right.
So I can go now.
Yeah.
And it's been a big difference in that. And it's a freedom. Can pray more, can study more.
Yeah.
And fellowship more, things like that.
Yeah. Over the past few years, with my schedule, which has included more travel than has been normal, and with ministry and some of my bodily weakness issues and other things that have gone on, you've taken some of my pastoral oversight.
Yeah.
So the balance of where I did, it kind of went like this: you and Charlie taking more and more of
Yeah.
that. What's that like for you? You getting that hands on with more of the people, getting to know a bit more intimate.
Yeah.
Mostly joy with that, or has there been anything, any hardship, difficulty
Well,
associated with that?
it's actually a purging, learning process.
All right.
You
So
learn how to
purging,
love
learning,
people.
I understand what it says. So explain purging to me.
Yeah. Well, you see things about yourself.
Okay.
In my oversights, I learn a lot from the people in my oversights.
Hmm.
And I'll be thinking about the way I need to deal with something, and they may have dealt with the same thing, and they had a much better idea on how to do it and stuff, and they did it better.
So they're sharpening you as you're trying to
Yes,
sharpen them.
exactly. Yes. And so oversights to me are a blessing because I look at it as fellowship and a way to get more intimate with each other, knowing each other in Christ better. And, you know, and I'm always teasing people. I said, well, you can't tell me nothing. Pastors know everything. And but I'm kidding,
Yeah.
but
I know that's not true.
and so, but they do. I mean, people are sharp,
Hmm.
and they sharpen you up.
Hmm.
And so, the last oversight I had, and of course you know the people, but they came and they already knew what I was going to ask. They said, "Okay, we got this down. Okay, and we're going to tell you about this
Yeah.
part of our life and that part of our life and everything." They were ready to go.
Yeah. And again, for those not here, we have as our regular commitment. What we try to do is that each of the pastors gets with every member of the church. Well, I should say every member of the church has one of the pastors that does what we call pastoral oversight. And that's rooted in the biblical commands of shepherding the flock that's among you, and what you read in Hebrews chapter 13 about giving an account for souls. We watch over souls, and so part of that means things like just how are things going with your soul? How's your assurance? Are you being fed? Are you taking in the word? How's your relationship with the Lord? How are things in the home? That's what we mean by when he talks about they have, we've gone through some of this. It's a spiritual checkup kind of a thing. And it is more of a checkup than an emergency pastoral meeting. So just to quickly explain that. John, I want to ask you a couple of questions here as we look to wrap up our time together with this. You've been in the congregation here for since 1996. You've been a pastor here since 1998.
Mm-hmm.
What's the most delightful thing about ministry? About even just being a part of the body, but also being able to have the real privilege of ministering to God's people publicly and privately. What's been the best thing, the sweetest thing for you and for your soul?
That's not Smarties. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Well,
I everybody here knows what that is. So John's a candy man for the children of the congregation and some of the adults.
brother,
Do you have any on you right now?
Huh?
Do you have any on
Probably in my truck, but
all right.
you need one.
No, I'm good. I don't take them. So.
But
That's why I'm so dumb. I guess
well, first thing, this church has got a lot of sweet people in it.
it does.
And it's just, if I wasn't a pastor or anything, this is the church I want to be in. Because it's. I tell people all the time, there are better churches, I'm sure.
Sure.
But I would say that relational wise and the way people get along, it's one of the best I've ever been in. And the people are sweet. They love one another. They sacrifice. They, all these things that it makes me grateful to be here. Yeah.
What's been the hardest thing? What are some of the hardest things about it?
some of the oversights. I mean,
Yeah, you.
trying to have the right answer
Mm,
to the problem. For some answers is only that you need to change something and do it this way. What I
right.
mean? What God says.
And sometimes you have to say, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
I do.
that's
I
hard,
say it a lot.
to say, listen,
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a good answer for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So sometimes getting into the weeds and seeing, because sometimes I mean, you and I both sometimes
Yep.
perhaps have been surprised. We had no, you get come to an oversight or somebody
Sure.
meets with you and they open a door to their life that you had no idea that a couple you thought was doing well is not really doing
Yeah, that
well,
happens quite a bit,
or
off
some
and
of
on. Yeah.
those
Yeah.
kinds of things. Is there anything that stands out to you through the years, or there ever times you thought I can't do this anymore, or I want to quit, or
No, I've never, been that far. There's been things that's been tough,
yeah,
you know.
oh,
Of course, we've had some meetings and they were tough,
yeah, no, it's right there.
and but overall,
Yeah.
no,
Okay.
yeah.
John, what do you as you look at the future here, I mean you're going to be 74 this year, hard to believe. Um as you contemplate the future, I want to ask you two closing questions. What concerns you as you look out of the future of the church, maybe even the future of this church, and what really encourages you?
Well, what encourages me is the future of the church, the young people.
The young people.
You understand what I'm saying?
I do. I understand
I
very much what you're saying.
uh, I love the young people we have right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we haven't had good young
No,
people in the back,
no.
but uh, I would tell people, I said, we got young men that will stand up and pray
Yeah.
and are not afraid, and they get up, lead the services, and all the things that a lot of young people really wouldn't want to do.
Yeah.
Now they may be different in this age because I don't know all churches.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? But that encourages me.
Oh yeah.
And the young couple specifically
Mm.
are raising up their kids in the nurture and admonition of the Lord.
Mm.
And another thing that I like that's going on is and I hate to say it this way, the integration of the races,
Okay.
because they're getting to see different people of different, not just colors, just
Yeah.
different, come from different parts of the world,
Yeah.
And I really like that because I think kids need to understand that and know that you love everybody
Yeah.
and we're all one in Christ.
Yeah, and to have it be rooted in the simplicity and nature of the
Yeah.
gospel, and it's the overflow.
Yeah.
And when we say sometimes, yeah, I mean, I think there's truth to the statement, birds of a feather flock together,
Yes.
but our feather is the gospel. The
Yes.
feathers are our mutual experience
Exactly.
of Christ, and
Yes.
regardless of what, I've been thankful in light of a lot of what's gone on in the world and in our nation to have you here, just because I love you for who
Oh,
you are.
I know.
But there have been times in the past where an African American family may feel a little bit wonder, is it going to be okay for me to go to a white church? I've actually had people call me and say, would I be welcome at your church? And it's an easy thing to say. Well, one of our pastors is African American, and I, so yeah, that's not going to be.
Yeah.
It's not a barrier here,
Right.
in any way, and so
Yes.
I am thankful
Yeah.
for that too.
So so I'm very encouraged about future of young people.
Yeah,
Now my worry is that they lose it, the opposite. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But I don't think, I'm just saying that
No,
uh,
well, obviously, yeah.
people.
You have to
I
finish.
want them to
You want to
fight for
begin
it.
well. You want to finish well.
Yes, I want them to fight for what they got.
Mm.
For what the Lord's, fight to keep it.
Well, one of the interesting things. So you came into this in a sense. I came into this, as far as this rich deposit of historical Christianity, confessional Christianity,
Yes.
which is the basis of a lot of our life together. We're a historic confessional congregation. We were outside of that. We were introduced to it, came into, embraced it, loved it.
Right.
Um, for others, they're growing up in it.
Yeah.
And the temptation for
Yeah.
that to be able to last multi-generationally.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing when someone comes and sees it from outside and embraces it, and those are the ones who very often are almost like the most rock hard, committed in it when you grow up in it and it's natural to you.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I'll make this comment and see what you think about this. We were talking on the Lord's Day about assurance, and somebody said to me afterward, and I think they're right in this, that those whose conversion stories are, I grew up in the church, I heard the gospel my whole life. At some point, I realized it was mine, but I'm not sure exactly when.
Yeah.
It might have been when I was 9. It might have been when I was 12. It might. Sometimes those who have grown up with and had it their whole life struggle the most with assurance, whereas those who have a story of that was my time of darkness. Gospel came. I know I got saved. Like you talked about in our first. You and Vanessa talked about in our first time together.
Yes.
And those people tend to have the most assurance. Again, this is more anecdotal. I can't prove this.
Sure.
And so I think what you're saying is, I mean, as pastors, we're very thankful and very excited about younger people in the congregation.
Yeah.
We've said sometimes, a church without older people is a church without wisdom.
Yeah.
A church without younger people is a church without a future.
Yes.
And to see the Lord do that as we're getting on here, us old guys.
Oh, yeah.
I look older. You
Yeah, but I don't mean old is old.
Well, John, it's been a privilege having this discussion with you. And again, it's been a privilege to serve with you. And I'm thankful for you, brother. Thank you for loving this congregation and loving me and loving my family. My son, who lives in Lexington, was saying not that long ago about though he grew up here in the church. He says, I only have a few friends here, but one of them's Pastor John. So thank you for having that kind of an impact. Yeah. I'm sure some of that were the thousands of Smarties he ate from you.
Well, that's true. 2,600. No, I'm just kidding.
That's the individual Smarties, not the pack.
Just not the pack, just one at a time. Yeah.
Well, again, brother, thank you for being here, sharing your story with us. Thank you for listening to Reformation today and tomorrow. Lord bless and keep you.